it's a job. And like with any other job that anyone would have, work at it, be professional, show up on time. There's the whole Hollywood stereotype of everyone's late.
Remember Junior from My Wife and Kids? The reason he vanished from Hollywood will leave you stunned. George O. Gore II had everyone cracking up as the goofy yet lovable Junior Kyle.
Now wipe them tears.
Oh, these ain't tears, Mama. These is eye boogers.
But behind those laughs, the set was turning into a pressure cooker. Tension, rumors, and bruised egos were boiling beneath that perfect suburban sitcom surface.
It's the business of rejection. You hear no 100 times more than you hear yes.
What looked like a picture-perfect family on TV was actually a battlefield in disguise. Between 2001 and 2005, millions tuned in to watch the Kyle family's wild antics, thinking it was all sunshine and laughter. But off-screen, it was anything but family-friendly. The bright candy-colored set of My Wife and Kids hid drama so thick you could cut it with a knife. Right at the center stood George O. Gore II, the guy who played the awkward yet lovable Junior. On screen, he was the ultimate punchline. Blank stares, clumsy confidence, and ridiculous one-liners that had fans rolling. But off-screen, the laughs stopped. Gore was dealing with growing frustration, creative clashes, and heartbreak that no one saw coming. He was fighting battles on every front while trying to hold on to the career he'd built since childhood.
On my test.
You what?
My son almost got an A on his test.
Behind the camera, the energy was intense. Damon Wayans wasn't just the star, he was the commander-in-chief. A comedic legend with razor-sharp timing, Wayans demanded perfection. Every take mattered, and every mistake stood out. The vibe on set, strict, competitive, and at times, uncomfortable. Then there was Tisha Campbell, the powerhouse who played his mom on screen. A veteran from Martin and House Party, she knew her stuff, and she made sure everyone else knew it too. Crew members whispered that Campbell often corrected Gore's timing right in front of everyone, stopping scenes mid-shoot to help him get it right. For a young actor still finding his rhythm, that kind of spotlight was brutal. It wasn't bullying, but it sure felt like a public test every time she spoke up. But don't get it twisted. Gore wasn't some newbie getting bossed around. He'd been in the game since he was a kid, even playing the younger version of Omar Epps in the cult classic Juice. He knew his craft and had instincts of his own. So when Campbell started schooling him on delivery, he reportedly shot back with lines like, "Your way's old school." It wasn't shouting. It was subtle defiance, the kind that speaks louder than words.
Oblong, unusually large, and just plain old unnatural head.
The tension between them wasn't just ego, it was a clash of eras. Tisha came from the old sitcom playbook, all about precision and control, while Gore wanted to loosen things up, bring something fresher and more natural to his role. What started as professional tension soon became personal frustration. And honestly, Gore had every reason to feel boxed in. Junior was written as the lovable fool, always messing up, never taken seriously, just there for the laughs. But George wanted more depth. He wanted to explore emotion, conflict, growth, something that showed his real range. Instead, week after week, he was stuck in the same goofy loops, his potential overshadowed by punchlines. It's no wonder he started pulling back. Imagine working your dream job only to feel invisible behind the jokes. George O. Gore II was ready to prove he was more than just the comic relief. But Hollywood wasn't ready to let Junior grow up. Gore's ambition didn't just stir the pot, it set the whole set on fire. At only 22, he made a bold move most young actors wouldn't dare to try. He stepped behind the camera to direct an episode of My Wife and Kids. That's right, he went from being the goofy son to calling the shots. The episode, Outbreak Monkey, even featured a cameo from a young LeBron James. Long before he became a basketball icon, it should have been a career-defining moment for Gore, but instead, it lit a fuse that changed everything. Not everyone was thrilled about his big break. Some people whispered that he wasn't ready to handle such a huge responsibility, while others straight up envied the opportunity he'd been given. Rumors swirled that producers clashed with him behind the scenes. Heated arguments, creative disagreements, and talk of cutting him from the show altogether. Imagine that, directing one week and being on the chopping block the next. The same success that should have boosted him started turning into a burden. And then came the money drama. Despite being one of the main reasons people tuned in every week, Carrying the show's funniest moments and giving fans those unforgettable junior laughs, Gore was allegedly getting paid way less than his co-stars. In Hollywood, that's sadly nothing new, especially for younger or lesser-known actors. But in this case, it hit hard. Insiders say his checks didn't reflect the work he was putting in or the value he brought to the show. It's wild. People assumed sitcom stars were living large, but behind the smiles and sitcom lighting, Gore was frustrated and quietly fuming over being underpaid. He tried to shrug it off to keep laughing through the pain, but deep down, it hurt. The same laughter that made him famous started to feel hollow. And just when things couldn't get more complicated, love entered the mix and made the fall even harder.
You have to have short-term memory. You really do. You have to forget that. You internalize it, you take it in, you learn from it. You know, if you wanted to do it one way, but you went against your instincts and did it another way. You know, you learn from those things, you internalize it, and then you have to forget about it.
It's always learn from your mistakes and move on.
Learn from your mistakes and move on. You have to move on quickly.
You can't
dwell on any of this. You have to move on quickly. A lot of times you're rejected for things that really have nothing to do with you.
On screen, Junior's relationship with Vanessa, played by Brooklyn Sudano, was adorable, goofy, charming, full of heart. But off screen, that spark turned real. The two started dating and fans couldn't get enough. Everyone was obsessed with their chemistry both on and off the show. But when trouble started brewing between Gore and the producers, everything shifted. The tension on set began to seep into their relationship. Reports say that when Gore's position on the show got shaky, Brooklyn Sudano began pulling back. Sources close to the situation claim she didn't want to get caught in the middle of his professional chaos. For Gore, who had always guarded his private life, that felt like a dagger to the heart. Losing love while watching your career unravel, that's pain no paycheck can fix. It was heartbreak mixed with humiliation, and it left scars that ran deep. As his relationship fell apart, so did his sense of belonging in Hollywood. The laughter, the lights, the fame, it all started to feel fake. What the world saw as a light-hearted family comedy, Gore experienced as an emotional war zone. Creative struggles, low pay, shattered trust, it all piled up until he had nothing left to give. He once reflected that Hollywood is a business of rejection. For every yes, there are 100 no's, and George had heard too many of them. Sure, he got that big yes when he landed My Wife and Kids, but it came with silent rejections that stung even more. No to creative control, no to fair pay, no to genuine respect. The same stage that made him famous was quietly pushing him out the door. When My Wife and Kids ended in 2005, it wasn't just another show wrapping up. It was the closing of a painful chapter. George O. Gore II didn't storm off. He faded away. Slowly, intentionally, he stepped back from the Hollywood noise and started redefining who he was beyond Junior. It wasn't a dramatic disappearance, more like a quiet retreat from a world that had drained him dry. He popped up here and there, still connected to the Wayans family. In 2006, he lent his voice to Thugaboo.
That was more like a meteor, Slim.
An animated special created by the Wayans brothers. In 2009, he appeared in Dance Flick, another Wayans project packed with family members both behind and in front of the camera. "Okay, let's do this," he said in one scene.
"Okay, let's do this."
And for a moment, it felt like the old spark was back. Then, in 2013, he re-emerged in second-generation Wayans on BET, playing a fictionalized version of himself. They even called him an honorary Wayans family member.
She quit her job and won't return my phone calls.
But just like that, the show ended after one season. And so did his time in the spotlight. Those appearances were more like nostalgic echoes than new beginnings. They reminded fans of who he was, not who he could have been. By then, George O. Gore II had quietly stepped away, not defeated but done. The same Hollywood that once crowned him a star had pushed him to fade into the shadows, leaving behind a legacy of laughter, heartbreak, and what-ifs. To keep it real, none of George O. Gore II's later projects hit like My Wife and Kids. Critics were quick to drag the gap between the hype and the final product. They said his acting felt dated, even out of place. The goofy charm that made him a household name in the early 2000s suddenly looked out of sync in a world chasing gritty realism and edgy storytelling. Hollywood had moved on, and they were acting like Gore didn't fit the new script anymore. But here's the real truth. This wasn't about bad reviews or canceled gigs. Gore was trapped by his own success. Junior wasn't just a role, it was a label that stuck to him like glue. The goofy son with the clueless smile became his permanent image, and casting directors couldn't see past it. That's one of Hollywood's cruelest tricks, when a role becomes so iconic that it swallows the actor whole. For 5 long years, George was locked in that mold. The industry had boxed him up as the lovable fool, and once the laughs stopped rolling, breaking out of that image was nearly impossible. Like so many young stars before him, he learned how brutal the game could be when the phone stops ringing and the scripts stopped coming. Behind closed doors, the pressure was heavy. The work slowed down, the buzz faded, and that spotlight that once followed him everywhere started to dim. For any actor who peaks young, that kind of silence can mess with your head. The self-doubt creeps in, the uncertainty grows, and you start questioning if you'll ever find your way back. From the outside, it looked like Hollywood had chewed him up and spat him out. Another cautionary tale of a sitcom star who couldn't transition, but behind the scenes, something completely different was happening. In 2017, after years of silence, George O. Gore II finally broke it. In a rare interview, he opened up calmly, honestly, and without any bitterness. He said he wasn't pushed out of Hollywood. He walked away. He called himself a former actor and a current writer and producer. That shift in identity said it all.
George. Born in North Carolina, grew up in Maryland. I now live in Los Angeles. Former actor, director, current writer, producer. That's pretty much it.
Then he said something that shocked everyone. I'm not good at being famous. Those 6 words flipped the entire narrative. He explained that fame wasn't fun, it was exhausting. I'm a quiet guy, he said. I like being behind the scenes. I like the anonymity of it. Wow, that wasn't a man who was bitter. That was someone finally at peace. Gore didn't disappear out of failure. He chose peace over pressure. No more cameras, no more red carpets, no more gossip headlines. Instead, he started channeling his creativity into writing and producing, far away from Hollywood's chaos. And guess what? He'd actually been doing that quietly for years. Gore revealed that since My Wife and Kids ended, he had been doing uncredited writing, sharpening a whole new craft while everyone assumed he was gone. That low-key grind turned him into a mystery. Fans wanted to know what happened, where he went, what he was doing, why he wasn't acting anymore. But he never spilled the tea. He stayed quiet, letting people speculate while he built a life that made him happy. In an industry full of scandals, arrests, and public breakdowns, his silence spoke volumes. While some of his peers were losing control, Gore stayed grounded. He didn't spiral, he stepped back. And financially, he was good. With an estimated net worth around $2 million from his sitcom days, he didn't have to chase fame anymore. That money gave him freedom, the rare kind of Hollywood escape most actors only dream about. So while critics might call his career a disappointment, others see it differently. He survived Hollywood's toughest test, child stardom, without losing himself. He didn't crash, he didn't burn, and he didn't beg to be relevant. He simply left on his own terms. That's real power. Then, quietly in 2022, George O. Gore II made a subtle return, not as the goofy actor fans remembered, but as a co-writer for Sneakerella, a Disney Plus reimagining of Cinderella.
Sometimes you just gotta let your dreams go.
It wasn't a loud comeback, but no flashing cameras, no big interviews, just pure creativity. Sometimes you just gotta let your dreams go. A line from the film felt like it came straight from him. It was poetic. The once silly Junior had grown into a man writing his own fairy tale from the background. His fade into anonymity wasn't a tragedy. It was a transformation. Gore didn't vanish because he failed. He evolved. The fame, the noise, the chaos. He traded all that for peace, privacy, and purpose. He wasn't a forgotten star. He was a man who chose freedom over fame. And if you trace it all back, his story started long before the sitcom lights. George O. Gore II was born on December 15, 1982, in Fort Washington, Maryland. He wasn't a child pushed by stage parents chasing fame. He found it himself. Even at 3 years old, his charisma was undeniable. During a preschool Christmas party, little George grabbed the microphone and emceed the entire show. People couldn't take their eyes off him. That spark, that natural energy. It was the first sign that this kid was destined to shine. Little George O'Gore II wasn't just reciting lines that day, he owned the room. At barely 3 years old, he grabbed that preschool mic and ran the whole Christmas show like he was born to do it. The adults were floored. This tiny kid was smoother, louder, and more confident than people twice his age.
So what happened was, when I was 3 years old, I emceed a Christmas program at my preschool. And there was a lady in the audience who knew a talent manager in New York and suggested to my parents that, hey, your kid might have some talent.
And sitting in the crowd that day was a woman who just happened to know a talent manager in New York. She was so impressed that she approached George's parents right after the show and urged them to send over a tape. A few weeks later, the Gore family got the call that would flip their lives upside down. Hollywood was knocking. At only 4 years old, little George was flown out to New York for his first big meeting with the professional talent manager.
Maybe you should send this tape to this manager, just see what happens. So my parents sent the tape, and then about a month or two after that, she calls back and she wants to meet me. We go up there, we meet. I'm 4 years old at this point, and I have a solo interview with a grown-up. And apparently I was impressive enough, and that got me started in my career.
Most kids would have been shy or terrified sitting alone in an office like that, but not George. He walked in calm, confident, and sharp as ever. Apparently I was impressive enough, he later joked, and that got me started in my career. Just like that, he had real representation and a future in Hollywood. But here's what made his story different. George's parents never let fame take over. They weren't chasing the spotlight or trying to live through their kid. They were protecting him, making sure he stayed grounded, humble, and focused. That stability became his secret weapon in an industry known for breaking kids apart, and it worked, big time. By age 9, George had already landed his first major film role in Juice, 1992, playing Brian, the younger brother of Omar Epps' character. That's right, he shared the screen with legends like Tupac Shakur and Samuel L. Jackson. For a kid who hadn't even hit double digits, that's insane! His role was small but powerful, just enough to prove this kid wasn't a gimmick. He was the real deal. From there, his career kept building. He popped up in Eddie, 1996, alongside Whoopi Goldberg, and then in The Devil's Advocate, 1997, holding his own in scenes with Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves. Imagine that. A kid from Maryland sharing screen time with Hollywood royalty. But while those film credits gave him credibility, television was where he truly started shining. The crazy part, he was juggling fame and high school at the same time. While filming roles and reading scripts, he was still walking the halls of Suitland High School in Forestville, Maryland, dealing with homework, teachers, and all the usual teenage chaos. It was double duty. One foot in Hollywood, the other in regular life.
But all the traveling, I would go to New York, I would return back to Maryland at, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Then I would wake up and go to school the next day.
For young black actors in the 90s, that path wasn't easy. The roles were limited, the expectations were sky high, and one mistake could end everything. But George handled it like a pro, quiet, focused, and determined. People who worked with him back then said he carried himself like an adult even as a teen. By the early 90s, Hollywood had taken notice. George O'Gore II wasn't just another child actor. He was a prodigy. Everything he'd done up to that point was leading him towards something bigger, something that would define his young career. The same kid who once grabbed a microphone at a Christmas party was about to grab the nation's attention. In 1994, at just 11 years old, George landed the role that would put him on the map. Gregory G. Williams, the son of Detective J.C. Williams, played by Malik Yoba, on Fox's groundbreaking crime drama New York Undercover. And let's be real, this show wasn't just TV, it was a cultural quake. Stylish, raw, and unapologetically urban, it flipped the script for what television could look like. For the first time, Black and Latino leads were front and center in a primetime cop drama, and audiences ate it up. The show quickly became the must-watch for Black households across the country. I've Got Your Daughter's Money tomorrow, 10 a.m. or the girl dies now.
I've got your daughter. Money tomorrow, 10 a.m. or the girl dies.
Now, Detective Nina Marino will stop at nothing.
That line alone captured the intensity of what the show brought to the screen. It was high-stakes storytelling, and young George was right there in the middle of it. Playing G was no walk in the park. His character was the son of an undercover cop, a kid growing up surrounded by danger, absence, and fear. George had to show innocence, confusion, love, and pain all at once, and he nailed it. Viewers watched him grow up on screen from 1994 to 1998 across 41 episodes that showcased not just his talent, but his emotional depth. Hollywood noticed, too. His work earned him 3 NAACP Image Award nominations, a Young Artist Award nomination in 1997, and a Young Star Award nod in 1998. Those weren't cute kid trophies, and they were proof that George could hold his own alongside veterans like Malik Yoba and Michael DeLorenzo. New York Undercover wasn't just another job, it was his training ground. The storylines were heavy, the emotions were deep, and George delivered with a maturity beyond his years. Every episode tested his range, sharpening his skills and preparing him for the next stage of his career. But all that early intensity came with the twist. When George later stepped into comedy with My Wife and Kids, he had to completely rewire himself. After years of dramatic scripts and heavy themes, switching to goofy, lighthearted humor was a major adjustment. It was a total reset, he admitted years later, explaining how hard it was to unlearn the habits that New York Undercover had drilled into him. That transition from gritty realism to sitcom comedy would define his next chapter and show the world just how versatile George O. Gore II really was. Comedy felt like a whole new world for George O. Gore II. When New York Undercover wrapped in 1998, he wasn't that bright-eyed preschooler who once charmed talent scouts. He was a seasoned teen actor with a killer resume, critical praise, and real Hollywood respect. By the time he graduated from Suitland High in 2000, he'd already achieved more than most actors dream of in an entire career. But his next move, nobody saw it coming. The serious prodigy who carried the emotional weight of a gritty cop drama was about to flip the script, literally. The same boy who once brought raw emotion to New York Undercover was about to step into sitcom territory and become a legend for a totally different reason. He was on the edge of the biggest transformation of his life, from dramatic powerhouse to comedy's most lovable fool. As the new millennium kicked in, George was ready to start over. After years buried in serious roles, he wanted out. He planned to quit acting altogether, head to college, and finally live like a normal young man. No cameras, no scripts, no pressure. But Hollywood wasn't about to let him walk away that easily. Right then, Damon Wayans, one of the biggest comedy icons alive, was developing a new sitcom for ABC. Casting directors were on the hunt for the perfect actor to play Wayans' on-screen son. And guess whose name came up? George O. Gore II. At first, he didn't even want the part. He thought sitcoms were corny, too fast, too loud, and totally opposite from the intense, emotional world he came from. But his mom wasn't having it. She convinced him to go for it, reminding him, "You got nothing to lose." So reluctantly, George walked into that audition and walked out with the role that would change everything.
Talked me into going on the audition.
Really?
I honestly,
so your mom wanted you to
Yeah,
go.
my mom wanted me to go. I didn't want to go. My mom just said, I had nothing to lose.
In 2001, he became Michael Kyle Jr., better known as Junior, on My Wife and Kids.
Kyle is entitled to the money in the wallet found by that man.
And from the very first episode, the show blew up. It dominated Wednesday nights, becoming one of ABC's biggest hits. Gore's version of Junior was pure comedy gold, goofy, clumsy, and hilariously clueless, yet somehow still lovable. Fans instantly connected to him. Junior wasn't just comic relief. He was the heart of the show. His chemistry with Damon Wayans was unreal, and his timing made every joke land perfectly. Whether he was getting roasted by his TV dad or fumbling through ridiculous situations, George made it all unforgettable. But here's what made his performance stand out. He brought depth to the comedy, especially in season 3. When Junior became a father on the show, George gave the character real emotional weight. It wasn't just silly laughs anymore. It was growth, responsibility, and maturity mixed with humor. He turned what could have been a one-dimensional dumb son trope into one of the most memorable characters in early 2000s television. Hollywood took notice. In 2004, George earned another NAACP Image Award nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series, along with a Young Artist Award nod. Over 5 seasons and more than 100 episodes, he left his mark on sitcom history. The wild part, the role that would define his legacy, was the one he almost turned down. He had been ready to walk away, but destiny clearly had other plans. Sometimes the thing you resist the most becomes the very thing that changes your life. When My Wife and Kids ended in 2005, George finally did what he'd always intended. He stepped back. No drama, no scandals, no messy Hollywood exes, just peace. He quietly redirected his energy into creating, writing, and living life on his own terms. And when someone once asked him what his best advice was, he kept it simple and powerful. He said, "I'm not chasing fame, I'm chasing peace."
I can't exactly repeat what he told me, but one day I was going through something and he sat me down and he gave me advice that to this day I look back on every single day.
For millions of fans, he'll forever be Junior, the goofy, lovable son whose grin lit up every scene. But for George O. Gore II, the greatest role he ever played wasn't on camera. It was the one behind the scenes, choosing peace over fame. His story is proof that sometimes the boldest move isn't chasing the spotlight, it's walking away from it. So now I've got to ask, what do you think of George's journey? Did he make the right call stepping away from Hollywood? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like, subscribe, and share button, and I'll see you on the next one.